Welcome to the Shorten Anime channel. Today we'll dive into the latest episode of The Great Ruler. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe to support the channel. The Great Ruler, Season 1, Episode 30. Evolve? Mu Chen and the others were stunned. They stared at the massive shadow within the black flames which covered the sky. Then he said, "Didn't it fail before?" "That's why it would like to try again." Signs of surprise could be seen within Mu Feng's eyes as he said, "It seems that this Nine Nether Bird is extremely prideful. It had to use many schemes in order to resurrect after failing the evolution last time. Who would have thought that it would attempt to evolve again when it had just reappeared?" Mu Chen was also surprised at the courage that this Nine Nether Bird had. If one was ordinary, he would unconsciously avoid doing whatever he had failed at doing. However, this Nine Nether Bird wanted to climb back up from where it had fallen. This courage, this pride, it amazed everyone. "Will it succeed?" Mu Chen asked in a low voice. He lifted his head to stare at the sky filled with black thunderclouds. Within the thunderclouds, the black lightning seemed to creep around like a massive black dragon as it released an indescribable power. Who knows, the Nine Nether Bird is originally an extremely powerful existence. It possesses the 11th rank on the Myriad Beast Records Earth ranking. Moreover, if it successfully evolves, it would have the qualifications to charge at the Myriad Beast Records Heaven ranking. At that time, it will truly become a divine beast, Mu Feng said. Divine beast? Mu Chen could not help but bite his lips. This simple phrase gave off an unparalleled pressure. This is because each and every one of the divine beasts were super existences within the Great Thousand Worlds. Even sovereign-class existences would be afraid of these overlords belonging to different species. However, the divine black lightning isn't that easy to overcome. Mu Feng also said gently as he stared at the enormous shadow within the black flames in the sky. In the world are many spiritual beasts, but just how many of them would be able to evolve into these super existences? A spiritual beast and a divine beast may only be different by one word, yet there is an unsurpassable gap between them. It has already failed once before. Normally speaking, once one fails to overcome the lightning, the one who was attempting would be annihilated by the lightning. However, this Nine Nether Bird seems to have escaped with its life before. If it fails again this time, it might not be that lucky. Mu Feng's pace of retreating gradually slowed down. If the Nine Nether Bird is going to attempt to overcome the lightning, then they would be safe. This is because they were just like ants in the Nine Nether Bird's eyes. They simply weren't worthy enough for it to pay attention to them. Mu Chen felt a bit of regret when he heard these words. If the Nine Nether Bird was to vanish due to the lightning, nobody would be able to obtain its spiritual beast soul essence. This way, the Mu territory would not have gotten any harvest for coming here. However, who would have the ability to ingest the Nine Nether Bird's soul essence, even if they obtained it? Mu Feng was extremely lucky back then when he ingested the Dragonfire Bird, not to mention the Nine Nether Bird, who was even more powerful than the Dragonfire Bird. While Mu Chen and the others stared at the sky with regret and admiration, a clear cry resounded throughout the world from within the black flames in the sky. Moreover, it was possible to hear a deep, unyielding, fighting spirit from within the cry. It was issuing a challenge towards the divine black lightning. Boom! The divine black thundercloud seemed to have noticed the Nine Nether Bird's provocation and immediately let out a deep rumbling sound, which echoed throughout the region. Under the rumbling sound, Mu Chen and the others could feel the spiritual aura within the world trembling, as if it was fearful of that terrifying heavenly might. "Li!" A clear cry rang out once again. The Nine Nether Bird's wings stretched out from within the black flames, and suddenly black flames surged out all over the place. It turned into numerous black flame pillars and fiercely charged at the black thundercloud. The Nine Nether Bird actually dared to take the initiative to launch an attack at the divine black lightning. The black thundercloud quietly surged and a black lightning started winding and swirling. The black lightning dragon stared coldly at the black flame pillars charging over. Then, a black lightning filled with destructive power immediately rushed down. Bang, bang, bang! The black lightning and black flames collided fiercely. The entire world seemed to have exploded at that moment. Then, the loud rumbling sound made the earth tremble violently and cracks spread out from the black basin. Mu Chen and the others stared in shock at the terrifying battle in the sky. At that location, the black flames and black lightning were wreaking havoc crazily. It was evident that the black lightning is an extremely terrifying thing. The lightning descended down as if it was attempting to destroy everything in the world and shattered countless black flame pillars. After the black lightning shattered the countless black flame pillars, it used a terrifying momentum to fiercely descend down into the black flames within the sky. In the end, it descended down onto the massive creature hidden within the black flames. Li! Within the cry this time, pain could be heard, but following this, anger emerged in the cry again. The Nine Netherworld Bird flapped its wings, and the black flame sea furiously whirled together. Then it finally turned into several interconnected black flame storms. The earth began to shatter due to the rotation of the black flame storms. Luckily, the Nine Netherworld Bird's primary target was the divine black lightning. Thus, the black flame storms whirled over towards the divine black thundercloud once it was formed. Facing against the Nine Netherworld Bird's crazy attack, the divine black thundercloud also quickly moved. A dark lightning vortex appeared at the center of the thundercloud, and numerous black lightnings gathered inside the vortex. Boom! Within the vortex, numerous black lightnings gathered together and eventually formed into a massive lightning pillar. It fired out and bombarded the black flame storms in a direct confrontation. The black lightning pillar was like the thunder god's punishment and forcibly tore apart the black flame storms. The entire world seemed to have become dim in that moment. The black flame storms that were formed by the Nine Netherworld Bird's full strength were stopped once again, and the Nine Netherworld Bird issued out an extremely furious cry again. This damn lightning had already stopped it once. Could it again be planning to prevent it from evolving? Its prideful self would never be willing to admit defeat. The black flames within the sky suddenly shrank abnormally. It was as if all the black flames wormed itself into the Nine Netherworld Bird's body. As the black flames shrank, the Nine Netherworld Bird's body finally entered everybody's view. It was a massive creature, approximately the size of 10,000 zhang, and its wings were able to cover a mountain when it was spread open. On its body, mysterious black feathers had a hint of black flames surging through them. On its tail, long tail feathers extended out elegantly, and clusters of black flames slowly burned at the tip. Although the Nine Netherworld Bird was extremely massive, it did not have a shred of fat. Its curved body made it seem extremely elegant, slim, mysterious, and beautiful. It truly was a fascinating creature. However, the Nine Netherworld Bird's eyes were showing a fiery red color at that moment. Unacceptance and rage were filled within its eyes as it stared at the entrenched thundercloud in the sky. Then it flapped its wings and furious winds suddenly appeared in the world. The black flames covered its wings, and the Nine Netherworld Bird itself turned into a black flame as it flew up high. In the end, it mustered all its power and rushed straight towards the black thundercloud. It was going to do a final showdown against the divine black thundercloud. Muchen stared at the flapping wings as it charged without fear into the black thundercloud, which even the Nine Netherworld Bird felt horror from, like a moth to a flame. His heart was filled with shock. The Nine Netherworld Bird's unyielding and stubborn personality made a spectator like him feel amazed. However, when this amazement rose up, a sense of regret also emerged. This is because Mu Chen saw the divine black thundercloud contracting intensely, and all the lightning within it seemed to have gathered together at this moment. This blow would definitely shock the heavens and earth. At that moment, the world became silent. Only the sound of thunder resounded out. Then a black lightning dragon, which was almost the same size as the Nine Netherworld Bird, pierced through the skies and landed furiously on the approaching Nine Netherworld Bird's body. The black lightning descended down from the sky above. The indescribable thunder sound emitted almost spread throughout the entire Black Eerie Swamp. The spiritual beasts within the Black Eerie Swamp also issued out fearful roars as they laid on the ground shivering. They did not dare to make even a slightest movement. Everybody at the scene had shocked expressions as they watched the events happening in the sky. Even Mu Feng and Liu Qingtian, who were the strongest individuals within the Northern Spiritual Realm, were completely horrified. This power was too terrifying. If it landed on them, even their remains wouldn't exist. Li! As the raging lightning descended down, a mournful cry filled with despair and resignation rang out. The Nine Netherworld Bird is going to fail. When Mu Chen heard this clear cry, his heart jumped. So the divine black lightning calamity was this powerful? Even such a mighty existence like the Nine Netherworld Bird couldn't endure it. In the sky, the berserk black lightning was almost suppressing the black flames completely. No matter how much the Nine Netherbirds struggled, it was unable to move forward. The black flames were finally pushed back completely, and helplessness appeared in its cry. It never imagined that it would fail again after its first failure. The black lightning, filled with destructive energy, had already oppressed the Nine Netherbirds' true body. Afterwards, a loud cry rang out from the Nine Netherbird again. At this moment, the mysterious black feathers on its massive body began to burn up. As the black flames raged out, the temperature in the world also began to increase significantly. Hurry and retreat! The Nine Netherbird is crazy. It's going to self-destruct. Seeing the black flames ignite on the Nine Netherbird, Mu Feng's face changed and he immediately shouted out. He instantly grabbed onto Mu Chen and darted away from the black basin, like an arrow. Behind him, Zhou Ye, Donghua and the others also had ghastly expressions as they hurriedly followed. Just how terrifying would the Nine Netherbirds' self-destruction be? In the distance, the Lu Territory's men also noticed this situation, and their faces immediately turned pale. They frantically fled away towards the opposite direction. At this instant, they completely gave up on the idea of capturing the Nine Netherbird. As the two groups of men rushed away recklessly, the black flames within the Nine Netherbird turned increasingly violent in the sky. It flapped its large wings, and then its massive body exploded at this moment. The black flames gushed out and even forcibly destroyed the terrifying black lightning. Even the black thundercloud in the sky was ripped apart by the surging black flames. Furthermore, the entire world seemed to have become like a steamer. The boiling temperature made the underneath forest burn up instantly. Although Mu Feng and the others had already escaped far away from the center of the explosion, the impact emitted out from it still caused the group of men to helplessly fall to the ground. Mu Feng climbed up and took a glance at the sky. His face became increasingly serious. At the location where the Nine Netherbird had self-destructed, an enormous black flame lotus bloomed. The black flames were like black meteorites and showered down onto the earth. It was as if the world was coming to an end. No matter where the black flames landed at, the earth would immediately crack open. Then the cracks would quickly spread. This black basin had instantly turned into shambles. "Hurry!" Mu Feng said in a deep voice. They could not afford to stay in this place anymore. If they were unlucky and were hit by a meteorite-like flame, then it would be bad news. Swoosh! However, just when Mu Feng had shouted out, he could hear the burning sounds of winds breaking. He quickly lifted his head and his face changed drastically. The black flames that flew across the sky seemed to be shooting at them. Mu Feng stared as the black flames quickly became larger within his eyes. His face was also pale. At this moment, it was already too late to escape. He hurriedly exchanged glances with Zhou Ye and took a step forward. Then with a violent cry, dense spiritual energy poured out from their bodies and formed a thick spiritual energy light barrier that protected the people behind it. The black flames with a long black tail showered down and bombarded the spiritual energy light barrier. Mu Chen and the others could feel the earth they were standing on start to crack. The boiling heat caused some minor skin irritations. While the spiritual energy light barrier blocked against the impacts of the black flames, cold sweat was constantly dripping down from Mu Feng and Zhou Ye. The hands that maintained the spiritual energy light barrier were burned so much that they felt bursts of pain. However, the two of them continued to maintain it. They understood that if the people behind them were to be affected by it, they would at least be seriously injured with their strength. Crunch. The spiritual energy light barrier trembled and twisted faintly. As this moment, a crunching sound rang out. Mu Chen and the others who were behind the light barrier hurriedly retreated as if they had met a great enemy. "Be careful! We can't block it anymore!" The spiritual energy light barrier was becoming more and more distorted. Finally, Mu Feng and Zhou Ye were not able to maintain it, and with a low cry, the spiritual energy light barrier shattered as the two of them were blown back helplessly. The black flames rushed in like a torrent. Although the majority of its strength was canceled out by Mu Feng and Zhou Ye, the impact still influenced Donghua and the others. Their bodies grinded across the land for 100 meters, as if they had suffered a heavy blow, before finally stopping awkwardly. Mu Chen's body also flew backwards and landed heavily on a giant boulder. His throat instantly had a sweet taste, and he could not help but spit out fresh blood. It was as if the bones in his body were collapsing. "Isn't this way too powerful?" Mu Chen wiped off the blood from the corner of his mouth and let out a wry smile. This was only just one of the flames in the sky. If they all were to bombard at them, wouldn't it instantly erase them? The Nine Netherbirds' self-destruction is truly terrifying. Mu Chen hobbled as he stood up. But just as he was about to call out to Mu Feng and the others, his face instantly changed as he lifted his head. He saw a tiny black flame heading straight towards him. Mu Chen! This sudden turn of events was also noticed by Mu Feng. His face immediately became distorted as he charged towards Mu Chen. With his speed, however, he was not comparable to the black flames that rushed over. So even Mu Feng could only watch as the black flames rapidly enlarged itself in his eyes. How unlucky! There was time only for this thought to cross Mu Chen's mind. Then he felt a burning feeling and pain instantly filled his mind. Darkness filled his vision, and his head dropped down. But the instant before his vision turned dark, he vaguely saw a light flashing within the black flame. Then he entered the darkness as he suffered a terrible pain. Mu Chen's consciousness floated without aim in the darkness. There was not even the slightest trace of light in this place. He was not even aware of time as he drifted around in a comatose state. Although he did not know how long he drifted around, a strange fluctuation emitted out from within the darkness. A strange black flame surged out in the center of the darkness as it condensed itself. As the black flames condensed itself, it actually turned into a giant black bird, which let out a cry toward the sky. Then it seemed to have noticed Mu Chen's drifting consciousness. With a sharp cry, it turned into a streak of black flames and charged over to his consciousness as it glared fiercely. Ah! Mu Chen issued out a scream from his mouth, and his body sat up like a conditioned reflex. His forehead was filled with cold sweat while his eyes were trembling. Little Mu woke up? The little lord is awake! Just when Mu Chen was confused about the scene earlier, delighted voices rang out from the surroundings. Only then did he lift his head up in daze and realize that he was on top of a stretcher. Zhou Ye, Duanwei, and the others were all looking at him with a happy expression nearby. Is he awake? Mu Feng's familiar voice rang out in surprise. Then he hurriedly walked over and let out a sigh of relief when he saw Mu Qian safe and sound. Dad, what is this all about? Mu Chen rubbed his head and asked. You were affected by the flame's impact caused by the Nine Netherworld Bird's self-destruction, and you've been in a coma up until now. Luckily, it doesn't seem to be a major issue, Mu Feng explained. If anything happened to Mu Chen, he really didn't know how he would face it. Mu Chen was stunned when he heard this. He vaguely remembered that a black flame was charging towards him before he fainted. What about the Nine Netherworld Bird? Did it die? Mu Chen shook his head as he asked. Yes. Mu Feng nodded with a bit of regret. Through the self-destruction, nothing was left behind of the Nine Netherworld Bird. They did not obtain any harvest this time. However, at least the Liu territory also headed back empty-handed. Thus, this could already be considered a success for the Mu territory, since the other goal of this trip was to stop the Liu territory. Mu Chen also felt a bit of pity. That was an existence ranked 11th on the Myriad Beast Records Earth ranking. It was not something you could meet easily. He really didn't know just how powerful one would be if they managed to ingest its spiritual beast soul essence. We have already passed through the Black Eerie Swamp, and we're currently heading back to the Mu territory. Zhou Ye smiled as he spoke. It was all thanks to Little Mu for the Black Eerie Swamp's trip this time. Otherwise, we would not be able to catch up with the Liu territory and see that terrifying scene. Oh ho ho, yes, there's a successor for the territory lord now. Congratulations, Duanwei, and the others smiled as he spoke. Little Mu had truly impressed them during the Black Eerie Swamp trip. After hearing these words, Mu Feng could not help but be proud. He immediately waved his hand and said, everybody should increase the alertness level after we head back from this trip. Since the Liu territory came back empty-handed, they would definitely be angry at our Mu territory. Moreover, with their personality, they would not let this go easily. Everybody agreed when they heard this, and then they accelerated. Although they have already exited the Black Eerie Swamp, they still felt the chills after seeing the earth-shattering scene earlier. They only wanted to get away from that place as far as possible. While Mu Chen sat on the stretcher, he immediately rubbed his head. Then he turned around and stared at the Black Eerie Swamp in the distance. He did not know why, but he had a strange feeling that the Nine Netherworld Bird hasn't died yet. 2 days later, Mu Feng and the others returned back to the Mu territory. The dusty group of people felt relieved while they thought back about the dangerous trip they had. They finally managed to return alive. Mu Feng dismissed everybody and allowed them to rest. As for Mu Chen, he hobbled for a while and returned back to his room. He immediately took a big nap. It was evident that he was completely exhausted because of the past few days. When Mu Chen woke up from his deep slumber, it was already evening. He stared blankly at the quiet night before stretching his waist. It's time to train. Mu Chen chuckled and sat cross-legged. He closed his eyes slightly and quickly entered the state of cultivation. The surrounding air trembled around him, and tiny traces of spiritual aura from the world were attracted over. Then, it finally entered Mu Chen's body through Mu Chen's breathing. He maintained this state of cultivation for approximately an hour. Then, all of a sudden, he opened his eyes. Within the dark night, his black eyes revealed amazement and hints of joy. This is because he noticed that the spiritual energy within his auracea had actually reached a state of being completely full. This represents that he had already reached the pinnacle of a spiritual movement stage late phase. It also meant that he could charge at the spiritual rotation stage. It was actually this fast. Mu Chen was delighted. He originally thought that it would take at least another 2 weeks or so. Never did he expect that the Black Eerie Swamp trip would have brought him that much benefit. After a while, Mu Chen gradually suppressed the joy within his heart and clenched his palms as an exquisite jaded box appeared within his hand. Within the jaded box lies a round emerald-shaped elixir. It was the accumulation elixir that he had received as a reward during the Northern Spiritual Field training. This elixir would provide great assistance to the ones charging at the spiritual rotation stage. He had never used it because he was waiting for the best moment to use it, and now it was time. Mu Chen picked up the emerald-like elixir and sniffed the faint fragrance emitted by it. His head immediately cleared up, and he no longer hesitated as he threw the accumulation elixir into his mouth. The accumulation elixir immediately melted and turned into rumbling spiritual energy. It seemed to pour through Mu Chen's body like a flood. Mu Chen quickly closed his eyes as he circulated the Great Pagoda art. He steadily ingested the dense spiritual energy bit by bit and poured it into his auracea. With the influx of the large amount of spiritual energy, many changes appeared in his auracea. The clump of spiritual energy that was like a nebula slowly shrank. While it was shrinking, Mu Chen could feel the spiritual energy within his body becoming purer and fiercer. It requires a lot of spiritual energy for one to charge at the spiritual rotation stage. Luckily, Mu Chen had the accumulation elixir. Therefore, he was about to emit some trouble during this step. He stabilized his mind and slowly ingested the elixir's medical power as he sent it all into his auracea. Within his auracea, the originally palm-sized clump of spiritual energy had turned into the size of a chicken egg. However, the edge of the clump had become rounder. Moreover, the black spiritual energy had become increasingly abstruse. The clump of spiritual energy was still compressing itself while Mu Chen continued to send spiritual energy within his auracea. This process lasted for around 10 minutes before the compression finally stopped. The chicken egg-sized clump of spiritual energy had become the size of a pigeon's egg. Mu Chen could sense the change happening within his auracea and quietly entered with his mind. He noticed that a pitched black light wheel gradually floated on top of the pigeon egg. The spiritual energy light wheel was many times smaller than the clump earlier. However, Mu Chen could sense how dense the spiritual energy within it was. It had far surpassed the spiritual movement stage late phase. Mu Chen stared at the small and delicate spiritual energy light wheel as joy welled up from his heart. He had finally broken through the spiritual movement stage and advanced into the spiritual rotation stage. Just by this, he had reached the basic acceptance conditions for the 5 great academies. Although he did not feel surprised that he achieved this step, the feeling of becoming stronger was extremely wonderful. Perhaps the guys from the spiritual road had completed the final step and obtained a power far beyond his. But so what? I, Mu Chen, was not inferior to any of you in the spiritual road, and I can do the same in the great thousand world. Mu Chen pursed his lips and a sense of pride and persistence emerged on the boy's handsome face. After he had successfully condensed the spiritual wheel, Mu Chen had completely relaxed. But just when he was about to exit this state, a familiar cry rang out from within his mind. Li! This cry was not loud, but Mu Chen seemed to have been struck by lightning when he heard it. His entire body stiffens as a fizzing sound rang out within his mind. Just when Mu Chen's mind lost its capability to think when it heard this cry, he discovered a fierce fluctuation appearing from within his body. Then it directly charged at his mind as if it was trying to devour his consciousness. The soul essence swallowing its owner? This situation stunned Mu Chen as his body instantly turned cold. Then horror appeared within his eyes. That wraps up the content for today's episode. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe to the channel to get notifications for the next episode. For now, goodbye, and see you next time.